CWL Seattle officially kicks off today after a very interesting day one for relegation. I'm incredibly interested to see how these new rosters perform heading into Seattle. Of course, quickly, I'm going to give a brief summary over my pool play predictions for which two teams I think will make it out of each group. So quickly looking on here with our first pool, it's going to be Pool A between FaZe Clan, Rise Nation, Echo Fox, Tainted Minds, and an open bracket team. If you're new to pool play predictions, essentially we don't know who that open bracket team will be as of yet. Those four teams will obviously qualify through the open bracket, and then later will be seeded into these groups. So can't really make a full-on prediction as to who the last team will be, but I can kind of give my speculation as to who I think, or which group I think is the more preferred of the others. But as far as Pool A, I think this is the most difficult pool for anyone outside of FaZe and Rise Nation, essentially. FaZe, to me, still look to be in prime form. The only thing that's kind of holding them back potentially would be the most recent patch that could really kind of change their play style as far as, a few of their players are considered. They end up winning Stage 1 playoffs pretty much off of clutch play. Anyone will say that. Their finals versus OptiGaming, clutch play after clutch play after clutch play. And if you really want to ask a team who's lived off of that overall play style, talk to Team Caliber and see how long that lasted essentially for them. Not the greatest play style to live behind, that's for sure. However, though, I think for FaZe, Priest really needs to be playing solid, along with the consistent performances from Attach, and especially MVP Zuma. If he's lining it up, playing well, I think FaZe can still have a consistent result. However, though, you really look at this team based on paper, and it's a question as to how they can perform versus the top echelon of teams, your LG, your Optics, and now your Rise Nations. But kind of getting on board with the other teams in this pool, we have Echo Fox, of course. They've got some fire underneath them. I think it's fair to say. Recent addition in Temp, facing off against his old teammate, Slasher, now on Rise Nation. Temp was very, I'd imagine, right, very angry about that roster change. Of course, he ends up leaving Team Envious along with it, so he doesn't necessarily have to deal with the repercussions, but he has to deal with the factor that, hey, my teammate left me. He was the reason why this team formed. I'm the reason now that I'm off this team. Thankfully, he's in, Stage 2. It's not as if he's in, open bracket team or made it through relegation. At least he's in pools, and at least he's going to be in Stage 2, right? But still, though, you got to imagine that's going to have a little bit of a fire underneath him. If we know anything about this guy, can definitely be kind of vocal, and I'm sure wants to get his revenge on Slasher for sure. And then now looking at Rise Nation, right? Based on paper, have a very, very scary lineup. If they do go down later in the tournament, I really want to see how the communication goes between Slasher and Looney. That, to me, is the biggest question that could really hold back this team from being a top 2 squad without question. Because you look on paper, right? Gunless, #1 flex. People would even argue he's one of the best players in the entire game. #1 AR, got to be Slasher, based on just pure shooting, right? As far as communication, his chemistry in game could differ. At times, #1 search and destroy player, one of the better aggro subs we have in the game, TJ Halley, and then one of the best in-game leaders that really has remained consistently like that for a while is Looney. So mixed in with those titles is a lot of personality. So Slasher in the past hasn't had the best career when it comes to decisions or when it comes to big teams such as this. So it's going to be a really big thing for me on whether or not he can perform. As far as Tainted Minds, they're a good squad. I think they can make some noise, potentially take a few maps, but based off of FaZe and Rise Nation especially, it's going to be pretty difficult for them. I could maybe see them taking a few maps off of Echo Fox. Maybe if, certain things go their way, they could maybe win a series versus Echo Fox. But as far as, regular play, I'm looking at Echo Fox versus FaZe Clan to decide that second seed. And I'm going to go with FaZe Clan in second and Rise Nation coming out in first. Now, taking a look here at Pool B, we've got OptiGaming, Team Envious, Unilad, EPSILON Esports, and an open bracket team. Essentially, Optic should be able to sail by this pool. You've got 2 teams out of the 3 who are kind of based off of, or heading into Seattle off of these roster moves, especially taking a look at Envy. They have a huge question mark on the team right now. I think as far as their overall team is considered, the attitude should be much higher. I think that's really going to benefit players like Classic, along with Hook, very, very well. Of course, you do add Chino and especially Decimate. You're really looking at them to perform. This is the time, right? We talked about these S&D stars that come heading into World War II, have no idea how far they can go. You've got Decimate on one of the top organizations in Call of Duty Esports. He's got a lot of, flack for being on this team as far as does he deserve it? Can he perform? And this is the opportunity to show that, right? But it's really going to be difficult, and I think once he gets in that spotlight, he's under the E-Classico, right, of esports. You're facing off against OptiGaming, thankfully last, which I really wanted to take note of. The one thing that Envy is going to be in much need of is that leadership. No one really knows who's the leader because Classic and Chino not really based off of that title in their past. But I think looking at the schedule, Envy's last match is going to be versus Optic as far as this pool. That's a blessing in disguise. Have a chance to warm up and get the teamwork flowing, establish who's going to be the team leader throughout a lot of these matches and kind of work from there. But as far as this pool is considered, who I think makes it out, I think I really want to say, because I'm not a fan of the Team Envy change. I don't think a whole lot of people are. I'm not a fan of the Team Envious change, so I don't want to give them, a matter of this decision was a great idea, and look, they're going to make it top 2 in pools. However, though, surprise this can happen. Unilad's been waiting for a breakthrough. You never know with EPSILON, right? But I'm going to give Envious the benefit of the doubt here. I think it's fair to say, based off the 2 teams who they're playing against, consistency to me should reign true, and I think we're going to see Envious make it out of this group. And of course, along with that, I'm going to be putting Optic Gaming as well. I say that, though, with a little bit of a grain of salt, essentially, because if you're an open bracket team, you want to nail down this group. You can take down a team like EPSILON. You can maybe take down a team like Unilad, and depending on how Envious is doing, because that still remains in question, you could face off against 3 teams who possibly, could argue, aren't the best squads in the world if they were in different groups. And one thing I want to talk about very quickly with Optic Gaming is the issue of rumors coming into this tournament of them not practicing enough. Post-Seattle, Karma's making comments and saying that he was allegedly going to be kicked off the team if he didn't have a solid performance in Stage 1 playoffs. If Seattle is slow for them, be looking out for post-Seattle roster changes to erupt if this Optic Gaming roster were to make a change, right? The dynasty, one of the greatest dynasties of all time, if that comes to an end, players are available. Optic is not happy in the situation that they're in. So if they were to start off slow in this group, my goodness, man, it'd be pretty crazy. It's kind of like a dormant volcano, essentially, as far as this group is considered, and kind of as far as Optic Gaming is considered right now. Except in this situation, it's not totally dormant. Yeah, you kind of get my little diagram there. But Pool C, take a look at this one now. We've got Luminosity Gaming, E United, Complexity, along with MINDFREAK, and an open bracket team. I've been hearing some great things about Complexity, but this is the time to show up, right? I've been seeing some good things. I've been, hearing that, Sensor's playing a lot better. Dashy's being able to work with his team, a lot more solidly. But facing off against the top team in this group, to me, without question, Luminosity. For Cole, this is going to be a very rough matchup for them as far as game types. This is United. This is a new roster. How do they perform despite the flack for the change, adding Fellow in place of Pristini? And I think E United, while this is going to receive a lot of flack, essentially, for this change, based off of what Clayster has said, E United added someone to fill the gaps of the previous team, whether it's communication, search and destroy, a faster pace to play with Pristini. They added someone who kind of fits in the puzzle, essentially. So it might not look from the outside as the greatest, addition, but it could work out. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt in this situation because I think E United knows what they need. Is that the correct piece? I don't think it's necessarily the best option for sure, but they're going with someone maybe short-term who they think can at least ignite their roster to play at that same top 6 level. But as far as this group, I think it should be LG, and I think it should be E United, but I think Cole can definitely cause some problems in search and destroy and maybe capture the flag. It wouldn't surprise me if Cole were to maybe take out E United, depending on how they face off against the other squads remains in question. But be looking out for MINDFREAK, though. Curious on their mindset post-relegation. Every team just relieved to get through. MINDFREAK definitely one of those squads, but I think that as far as MINDFREAK's history in pools, they've only made it out of groups once this year, and I believe at CWL Birmingham, MINDFREAK did go Game 5 with Luminosity. So there is some potential there. You never know with the Aussies in their search and destroy, and especially if Shox is playing well. So be looking out for MINDFREAK. Complexity can definitely make some pretty crazy changes. The search and destroy in this pool should be pretty elite, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I'm going with LG1 and United 2, excuse me. Now looking at our pool of death. Pool D, Team Caliber, Red Reserve, Splice, Evil Geniuses, and an open bracket team. I've been seeing some fans debating whether or not they think that the pool of death is Pool C or Pool D, which one they think it is. The difference for me between this pool and Pool C is that I don't even know who can make it out of first place. As far as Pool C, I already had Luminosity Gaming at least makes it out in second, right? They're at least a stable pick. In this group, it really wouldn't surprise me if any number of the top 3 teams, being TK, Red Reserve, or Splice, are in the first position out of this group. It wouldn't surprise me if any three of those are. It wouldn't surprise me if Evil Geniuses ends up getting the second position over maybe like a Red Reserve or maybe a Team Caliber. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. So to me, this is why this is the group of death, in my opinion, because there are a number of different options and a number of different surprises that technically aren't surprises if they really do come through. So with that in mind, Pool C, who's the clear-cut favorite? It's kind of in question, right? It should be Team Caliber, but based off of placements from time to time, you could look at Red Reserve, you could look at Splice. Splice to me is an interesting squad, right? They're a really solid team from time to time, but as far as their placements, right? Top 2, top 12, top 16, top 2. Like where's the consistency at it essentially for this team? And along with, of course, Splice being in this group, you do have Red Reserve, so you have the battle of the European squads, the kind of best squads as far as Europe in the entire game going at it. I think that should be an awesome match to watch. Really looking forward to seeing those two teams face off against one another. But also kind of speaking on the history as far as Europe is considered in placements or even in groups, 3/4 of the tournaments that Red Reserve has been in pools for, they don't make it out of pool play. So along with that, I think it's going to be put into question how Joe performs with the recent update, regarding Airborne. Of course, you got to talk about Team Caliber, the recent additions of Pharaoh and Methods. One team I think could definitely show something. A loss of the players they had really needs to be rebounded as far as chemistry is considered. So I think I'm really interested to see how TK performs, probably other than Rise Nation. Those are the two top teams, I think, out of Roster Mania. I am the most interested to watch just purely play. And as far as more to kind of talk on Team Caliber really quickly, accuracy to me will be a huge question to kind of decide how Team Caliber plays. Of course, he's now the flex, was the main AR, was kind of providing consistent overall KDs from Hardpoint to Search and Destroy to CTF, He was playing well in just about everything. So for his role to get switched up with adding in now Methods and then adding in Pharaoh, who isn't really known to be the greatest, teamwork player essentially, there's a lot of question being put into Team Caliber and a lot of pressure as well. The two top placements that they had, 2 first places already with this team. A lot of question be kind of put in regard. That's absolutely for sure. And quickly talking on Evil Geniuses, based off of previous stats, like I said, with Red Reserve and with Splice, they have a shot. I wasn't really impressed with them when it came down to relegation. I think that they're going to need a team effort with Apathy for sure leading the way, but he has some difficult subs to face off against when it comes down to this group. So for that reason, and for the reason being that I wasn't super impressed with EG's play, it could change when it comes down to groups, I'm actually going to go with a little bit of surprise here. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by this pick. I think that we're going to see Splice make it out. I think we see a little bit of an upset, essentially, if you really even want to call it that, between Red Reserve and Team Caliber. I think Red finally gets their revenge on a team like Team Caliber. I think they catch him off guard, and I know Red is very motivated coming into this tournament as far as film, practicing all that stuff. So I'm saying Splice in Seed 1, Team Caliber in Seed 2. I think Red Reserve yet again makes it into the losers bracket. They just consistently have problems with that, and also so do Evil Geniuses. Of course, those are my pool play predictions. If you guys are interested and would like to, of course, make sure to even tweet at us at UMG Events to let us know your pool play predictions as well. And make sure to tune into CWL Seattle this weekend, and hashtag ReviveCOD.